Joining me now, a guy that puts his mock draft together just this week. It was fun to read it. Jim Callis of MLBpipeline.com. He'll be alongside on June 10th for our coverage of the draft. Jim, I want to start there. How do we gauge high school talent when they didn't play high school baseball because of everything that's taking place in the country?
Yeah, I mean, some of the warm weather areas of the country got, a couple weeks of high school in, some scrimmages. Although I don't think a lot of people realize, Greg, the most important time to scout high school players is the previous summer on the showcase circuit when they're playing the best of the best. Like there's a kid up near me here in Chicago, Ed Howard, best shortstop in the draft. He's not going to face that much premium high school competition during a typical season. You really need to see Ed Howard the previous year. We'll be talking about this next year. If we don't have summer showcases and college summer leagues this summer, which who knows, it doesn't look great for that right now, we could be going into next year flying blind. But this year, I think teams, while they wish they had more looks at guys, do have a decent amount of information on high school and college players.
All right, a decent amount of information, but not as many rounds to draft players. How are big league organizations addressing this 2020 draft right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the team standpoint, from a if you want to call it selfish scouting and player development standpoint, everybody wished they had more rounds, and they don't. I do think with a 5-round draft, it's going to look very similar to how the first 5 rounds of last year looked. I still think we'll see a lot of the top high school players get paid. Teams will find a way to pay them. We could, instead of seeing the senior sign strategy in round 6 to 10, where you take a college senior for a couple $1,000s and use that money to pay a high school guy in the 3rd round, maybe. I think we might see some college juniors getting squeezed a little bit in the 4th and 5th round, since this year, if you don't get drafted, you can only sign for $20,000. I think teams will leverage guys a little bit that way. But I do think, all in all, it will look like a pretty normal draft or pretty normal first 5 rounds. It will just stop abruptly after pick 160.
Okay, well, let's talk about pick 1, if you don't mind. Is Spencer Torkelson a slam dunk atop this draft?
I think in terms of who's the best prospect, yes, he is a slam dunk. It feels weird to say this, but I think just because people aren't out and about and running into people as much and everything's being conducted over Zoom meetings, I think the vast majority of them would be surprised if it's not Torkelson. I mean, Greg, this guy's bat is so special. I always talk about how I like the power guys who can hit. Well, this is a guy who has 70 or 80 raw power, he might have 70 hitting ability on the 20 to 80 scouting scale. I had one scouting director tell me he's the best hitter he's ever seen. And this guy who's done this for more than 2 decades, that he thought if you want to put Spencer Torkelson in the big leagues tomorrow, if the Tigers took him, they could. I mean, this guy might be the best bat in the draft in terms of hitting and power since Mark Teixeira back in 2001. First base only. It's a little bit unusual for a guy who might go 1-1, although he is athletic enough that he might be able to play left field, but it's not going to matter. I mean, this is the type of guy who could hit 300, 35-plus homers. You remember last year we raved about how good Andrew Vaughn was. This guy's better than Andrew Vaughn, and people thought Andrew Vaughn was the best combo hitter in a while.
So the Baltimore Orioles have the number 2 pick. More than likely, Torkelson will not be there for them based on your analysis. What will they have at their disposal for that number 2 overall selection?
It's interesting. I think it probably comes down to 2 players. One of those would be Austin Martin out of Vanderbilt, who is the best pure hitter in this draft. The position's a little bit in question. Teams were hoping to see him at shortstop this year. He opened the year at 3rd. He didn't throw real great there. He moved to center field. I mean, this is a guy who led the SEC in hitting and on-base percentage last year as they won the national championship. He's not huge raw power, but he's such a good hitter. He gets to everything he has. So he'd be one option. I think the other obvious option would be the best pitcher in the draft, Asa Lacy from Texas A&M. It's plus fastball, slider, changeup. He's even got a curve that's close to plus. He's throwing more strikes this year. You could argue, because there's so much college pitching in this draft, and the Orioles pick again at 30 and 39, that they're probably better off going hitter. I still think you take whoever you think is the best player, and if they think it's Lacy, they should take Lacy. There's also a little bit of a school thought. It's, I think, more kind of rumor mongering than concrete at this point. There's Nick Gonzalez at New Mexico State, who projects as a second baseman. He's a very good hitter, very similar to Martin. Cape Cod League MVP. He's probably a guy who goes in the 4 to 6 or 7 range. And, you always have kind of talk, like, what if they took him and cut a deal and had more money to get a guy at 30 or 39? So that talk's floating out there a little bit too.
We're so excited. We can't wait to bring it to you less than a month away here on MLB Network. Jim Callis of MLB Pipeline, well done. Thank you, buddy.